was really open, and like I absolutely loved it. So after uni, you guys definitely have opened my eyes a lot more to the fluidity of gender and how much actually goes on around it. Like, it sounds really silly. I feel like I should know so much more than what I do, but actually I think there's a lot of people in the same place as me. And it's just taught me, I don't know, I've learned so much more about it than I already did. I feel like I knew the basics. Now I have a proper understanding of what it means and how to be sensitive around the subject as well. And I definitely have a lot more arguments around it as well, especially with my dad, who I love lots. But, you know, he's set in his ways, we'll say. But it's nice to have a challenge.
You're on mute, dear.
I'm on mute. I'm so sorry. All the technical difficulties today. And it always happens. Don't worry. We're so used to it by now. But I was actually going to say, really unfortunately, due to some technical issues, we didn't go live immediately. So we've been talking for around 3 minutes. So anyone at home, so sorry if you've just come into the middle of us talking. Very luckily, you have not missed much. We have literally just started, but we'll take it from the top because why not? And we can. So hello again and happy International Women's Day to everyone at home and here celebrating. I am joined by 3 lovely ladies. See, I managed to correct myself because the first time maths is not my strong suit, obviously. And we're going to be talking about our own experiences with femininity, with womanhood, with gender, and just like hopefully it'll just be a really casual chit chat. So please, if you're watching at home, please get involved, send as many comments as you want, and we'll be like taking them up as we see them, basically. So send a hello if you're watching at home. I am Dia. My pronouns are she, they, and I am the Equality and Diversity Executive at the SU. I'm now going to hand you over to the lovely, lovely Laura, but I'm actually going to do it in a way where I point to her first time.
Yeah.
Hey.
Nicely
Well
done.
For everyone who doesn't know, these screens are mirrored. So it's really confusing when you're pointing. We're not making a big thing out of it.
Yeah.
But hello, everybody. My name's Laura. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the academic executive at the Montfort Students Union. I'm very lucky to work alongside some of these ladies. I'll go up to Aisha.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Aisha. I'm the Student Opportunities and Engagement Executive. My pronouns are she, her, and like everyone else, I am extremely fortunate to work with all these 3 wonderful women. Joanna.
Thank you very much, Aish. I am Joanna. My pronouns are she, her. And as those have said before me, I am also very, very lucky to get to work with 3 fabulous ladies who have taught me a lot in the last 10, 11 months. Go them.
Go
Gone by.
Thank you. Exactly how it should be. Oh, well, thank you guys so much for joining me, first of all. And like, it does really, really mean a lot because I think to have these conversations is so important. And, you know, there's always so much discourse, like, I don't know if that's the right, but around International Women's Day. And, you know, ultimately, I don't ever want this day to really exist. I want this day to be eradicated, and I want us to reach a point where we have reached parity across all the genders. But unfortunately, it's not the case right now. So, you know, it is something that is so prominent and prevalent, and we have to talk about it. But it's also something that everyone individually has so many different experiences with gender and their opinion and their perception of it. So if it's okay, Joe, I'm actually going to come back to you. So as before we got cut off, you weren't answering a question, and I wanted to see if you would be able to just go back on it a little bit. And that is, talk to me about how you perceived gender before university, and how do you perceive gender now? Is it the same? Has it changed? Do you have more doubts? Are there more things that you question? I don't know. Tell me everything.
Hey, I feel far more prepared this time, so I think I will hopefully make more sense. Prior to uni, I thought I had pretty good knowledge. I was explaining to you guys how I was, in my eyes, fortunate enough to grow up with a mum and a dad, and I went to schools where it was quite openly spoken about. But it wasn't until I came to uni that actually I realised, like, oh, there's actually so much more to do with gender. There's so much more I can learn about it. You three have taught me so much. And I probably have more questions now, but in like a good way, because it just makes me want to learn more. I love talking to people about it, love having a good argument with some very stubborn people who think, nah, gender is male and it's female and that's it. And I'm like, no. But I maybe don't say it that politely. So my perception has definitely changed, but for the better. But it's also made me more wary of a lot of things, which I'm sure we can go into later.
And that we will. Look at you, Jay. You're getting so good at all these and answering these questions so diplomatically. I love it. But Aisha, Laura, what about your perceptions of gender before and after?
Do you want to go first? Okay,
I don't mind.
I'm happy to go. I think
Go for it.
For me, gender before uni was something that I hadn't really thought an awful lot about. My only thoughts about gender were the sort of like stereotypes between these are what girls do, these are what boys do, and sort of trying to break those individual stereotypes within themselves. But it was only, I don't fully really know when it was when I started to become aware that gender is obviously so vast and such a huge topic, and not just so sort of like singular, like girl and boy. But I think since coming to university, I have learned so much. I don't know if that's to do with there seems to be a massive move in social consciousness and how much people are aware. I don't know if it's that or if it's the people I've met or the conversations I've had, but I'd say these last few years has really opened my eyes to a lot, and I'm so glad that it has. I feel so much more, I don't know, empowered with the knowledge that I have. And I'm not there yet. Like, I don't think anyone will ever be completely there because it's something everybody's continuously learning about. But I've come so far on this journey, and I'm so glad to be speaking here today about it.
Oh, and thank you for allowing us to be a part of this journey. I feel very, very blessed.
How do I top that? How do I top that?
You know what? See, the mistake was you let Laura go first.
True. I'm learning from my mistakes. Cool. Next time I'm going first, flowers. But no, in terms of my experience, I'm on a bit of a similar boat to both Joanna and Laura. Like, I think gender to me has always been something like you're either male, female, and that was it. And I think before coming to uni, I still had that same perception in my head. And it also kind of changed throughout my journey at university, if that makes sense. Like, I think first year I was still within that same mindset of the male, the female gender roles. I think ever since I was like a little girl, the stereotype that Laura talked about, the girly girl is what used to be thrown at me all the time. So to me, like for me to like realize that there are so many other different not gender roles, but identities that people identify with, and just kind of learning to know them. I'm always in awe and always like wow, people are just be out there like being their best selves and being happy with the way they are, and that's what makes me happy, like people being happy. And like Laura said, I'm learning every day. This is completely like a big norm, a big change to me, and it's not a norm. And I just love learning about it, and I think the more I learn, the more I'm respectable towards it. And I think the more respectable I am towards it, the more welcoming people around me will feel. So that's like my aim with it.
I love that. And I think the one thing that we all have in common, I guess for me, I perceived it in a really short sentence is before university or a little bit before university, I perceived gender as such a binary thing, like male or female. And as in my final few years of like teenagehood to adulthood, of like maturing, I kind of got the sense of, hey, A, gender is a social construct, and B, like there is such like gender is a spectrum and there's so much to it. And I think that is so important and needs to be incorporated in the discussions that we're having, because when we're talking about today we're talking about womanhood, is that actually, hey, there is a whole scale of womanhood, and you can be on this side or this side, and it doesn't matter where you are still a woman. So that's been like the one thing that I kind of really picked up from university. And like I came to uni and I got to see people with different gender identities and people who like have been able to kind of explore their gender identity a lot more than I was able to. And I feel comfortable enough, like I've explored with my gender identity, and I still constantly am. And who knows, maybe where I stand on that spectrum might move up as we go along in life. And it's all very, very interesting. But I think uni is definitely one of those places that has solidified the thought of it being a spectrum and actually understanding that it's not a binary. I don't really know how much more there is, and like Joe said, like we are still constantly learning and there's so much to it, but this is the place I've been able to learn it, and that's what I love. So I'm just going through the comments. Hi Izzy, hi Amber, lovely to have you here. Happy International Women's Day. And Amber has asked the question, how old were you when you first started to understand how the world views womanhood and femininity, and what did you learn? I'm going to take that one first. I'm going to do it. If that's it. But just because the first thing that stands out to me is like, for like as long as I remember living, like for like the last of my memories is that like gender has been so constructed in my head. It's such a pivotal point. Like I grew up and I was like, hey, you are a girl, I am a sister, I am a daughter, I'm going to be a mother one day. We'll see on that one. But there's been so much ingrained in me. Like I grew up with a single mother. That's what I call it when I'm cool. And I grew up with a single mother, and in turn, like my mum's father passed away like months before I was born. So it was just two strong women and like half of me in a house living together. So it was something that I was always surrounded with in terms of like womanhood, and like, hey, you are a girl, we are a girl, we share these attributions. And it was just, I don't know, it was just something that stood to me. And the question below is like, how do you understand? And I don't know if I have an understanding even now of like what it really means. I just knew I was a woman, or I knew that I was being told that I was a woman, and blah 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 blah. Whether I knew it or not is different, but it's what I was taught. Like, does that make sense? I don't know if that relates to any of you guys, or
yeah.
I'm going to jump in with you there,
Gia.
Thanks. No, I completely get where you're coming from, and I think I'm on a similar wavelength to that, because I think as long as I can remember, these stereotypes and these gender norms of what being a woman is has been kind of placed upon me. I think it's a little bit different from like the Asian community compared to like different communities, because I feel like the woman is seen as like okay, your whole life is leading up to you getting married, and then after you get married is you leading up to having children. And like that's what a lot of girls kind of grow up to be like. Their ideal is to get married. Like that's the main purpose of their life, basically. And it is kind of a lot for me, kind of fighting these stereotypes and fighting these societal norms. Be like, no, that's not what I can do. I can have both, best of both worlds, if that makes sense. I can have a career and I can have a family life. And it doesn't need to be one or the other. And it doesn't make me selfish if I'm focusing on my career or not on my marital life or anything like that. And these are some of the gender norms I kind of remember growing up to. And then like another one that really still gets to me is the fact that men don't cry or boys don't cry. Kind of hearing that growing up, and I was like, why? I always questioned it when I was little. And I think like throughout my life until uni, I think I just kind of brushed it off, be like, okay, it's a thing. Until I kind of started questioning more again, like, why don't they? They need to. They're human. They need to feel emotions. They need to let it out. And having that societal pressure on them, like if you cry, you're weak. I think that's so absurd. And I think I slightly went off topic here, but sorry, it's just I think it just goes hand in hand. Like we have these women and femininity norms, but then also come along the norms of the men.
No, absolutely. And also I want to say, I think that's the beauty of this conversation is I wanted it to be as relaxed as possible. And again, hopefully guys in the comments, like, please keep going. But this is a journey. Hopefully this will be a journey in itself, like the four of us just kind of chatting, because I've never heard, like, I don't think we've ever actually sat down and fully spoken about gender and what it means to us. I know we talk about it in work, or we have our views and we do it, but actually for us to sit down and actually share those thoughts and get really deep and personal, I think is so important. Laura, I'm going to come to you because I feel like you were fighting Laura for that first place spot there.
Sorry, Laura. I learnt from my mistake.
It's cool, guys. I'll just chill in the back.
You do you, Jay.
I think for me, I'm very similar to you, Thea, in that sort of I was brought up around mainly single parent household, and like my mum and like my grandmother, both very strong, independent women. So for me, the concept of being a woman wasn't necessarily how it's sometimes depicted, in that it was sort of less than, or and anything sort of, like, I thought the concept of being a woman and being sort of feminine was wonderful. However, I think in sort of like my earlier childhood, I was a little bit of, well, sometimes a tomboy, but sometimes a girly girl as well. So I really sort of went from side to side, and I think some aspects of my family really did not like that. But I was quite lucky in that my mum and sort of grandmother let me just do whatever I wanted, let me wear dungarees and play in the mud, which I still like to do now. Maybe not so much in the mud, but
I was going to say, every Friday, guys, if you're ever wanting to do some dating with Laura, you'll find her in the mud at Beach Park, just rolling around.
But definitely dungarees still. So I think, I don't know fully if I've really answered that, but I suppose how I was quite young when I started to understand how the world views sort of being feminine or being a woman, in that I learned that it was strength and the ability to sort of choose and do what I wanted. And I learned almost from that to sort of have the courage now to also perform it however I liked it.
I love that. I really love that. And you spoke on some elements of like being a tomboy and stuff, which I'm going to touch on later, because I think that in itself is such a major thing in regards to like gender constructs and stuff. But I want Jay to kind of answer, and I really want her perspective on this before we move on to that, if that's okay. But thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much. So I guess, again, I've probably always had some understanding or like knowledge of it, but never really thought about it. And the same as all of you guys, I grew up in a household where, I knew I was a girl. There was the things of, girls clean, women like wine, men like beer, but actually my mum and dad had a very unique upbringing, which definitely reflected on me. And I think, especially when I got to college, my psychology teacher, we actually had to learn about gender. And one of the biggest things he showed us was he asked his 7-year-old daughter, what does gender mean to you? And she actually said, oh, well, my dad drinks wine and does all the cooking, and my mum likes to sit and do nothing. And he kind of said, that shows a lot about how we learn gender.
Like we learn it off roles, right?
And the same as Aisha. I mean, I don't think I learned it from my mum. I think I watched a lot of TV growing up that taught me being a woman means becoming a mum and becoming a wife. And that has stuck with me. As you three know, a lot of my life is definitely around wanting to find someone. But actually, since being with you three, I've really started to learn actually being a woman it's so much more than that. Like, oh my God, I'm so awesome on my own. I'm so sorry. Like
you are.
I'm really awesome all by myself. And I think now is the time where I started to understand and learn so much more about womanhood and femininity and everything that comes with that.
Own it, queen.
Yeah. And it's also taught me a lot about the negativity I had surrounding being a woman a few years ago. But I think that will link more with some of the questions that we've got coming in the comments. So I'll get into that.
I love that. Thank you so much for asking that question, Amber. I really hope the stuff that we've been saying makes sense to you guys, and I hope it's something that you have an opinion on as well. So I'd really love to hear what your own thoughts are on, like, when did you learn about womanhood, if you identify as a woman, and like what does it mean to you? I've seen another question from Izzy, and I think that is a brilliant question. I'm going to come to that in just a moment, if that's okay. That's the one. But before that, I'm actually going to ask a little bit about like the tomboyness. So Laura, you mentioned like growing up, you were a tomboy, and so was I. Like I must say it now, to the max, I was a tomboy, and that was I was the football kid, I was the sporty kid, I was like everything you would associate with being a tomboy. But actually, like, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean to be a tomboy, right? Like, why is it that even within your own identity as a woman, if you want to run around and play in the mud, you're like regarded as this is boyish behavior? Like, why is it that we got stereotyped into doing that? Like, you still like to play in the mud, don't you, Laura? You're not a boy. You don't refer to yourself as a tomboy. You are a whole woman. You know, you are who you are.
Outdoorsy.
And
yeah,
and it also goes on from what Joe's saying. And actually, I feel like I'm going to say before university, especially for me, but realistically, I'm talking about before I started thinking on my own 2 feet. And when you're at the age where you don't really have the capacity to question much more than what you're kind of being presented with, but I just assumed that going outside, playing anything that was referred to as tomboyish was not womanly. Like playing sports, not womanly. And I just like, was that the same for you guys?
Yeah, and hanging out with boys.
I think it's just about
like that you should have really close female friends, like in Sex and the City and things like that. But actually, I would really appreciate if someone could name one woman that, no offense, I love all of you, I love women, but I don't think I could spend that much time with you. Like, I get on my nerves, like, and everyone does, but I was that person that preferred the company of boys. I loved hanging out with my dad, loved having more boyfriends, boys that were friends at school. Although I also just have a lot of boyfriends, I was that child. But again, but
that doesn't mean like you're a boy, right? Like, it just means you're doing what you want to do. And I think there's just so much innateness about, like, I can't for sure say I know what it's like on the other end of the spectrum in terms of the masculinity end of the spectrum. But there's toxic masculinity is absolutely a thing. And, you know, as we've spoken about it, boys not crying and stuff, there is this whole element of like, how can we attribute elements of a being and of personality to a gender? Like, how can we, the gall, the gumption, the audacity, to quote it's
just bizarre. Like, how is it that, like, just, I don't know, just like kicking a ball is suddenly making you like less of a gender? Yeah,
or just even like as simple as wearing joggers and a hoodie, that's automatically seen as like, oh my god, she dressed like a boy. Like, how is that a universal symbol of what a boy dress is?
Like how can we attribute clothing to a gender?
It's so weird. My nephew is wearing dungarees today, and when you undo them, it looks like a dress. Either way, he looks like a cool baby. And like, I've started doing this thing, like, he is a boy baby, but I always say, I was like, let's not assume his pronouns, because honestly, like, I look at him some days and I think, yeah, like,
if that's such a fact though, like,
yeah, I'm hoping he grows up to just be like, I do it to annoy his dad more than anything. And I'm like, what are you going to do if he grows up and he comes out as being queer or gay or trans? And it's really weird that some people in my life still don't understand and are comfortable with that. Whereas I'm sat there like, let him be. Like, you know, he's still really young. I'm not going to sit there and put things like that on him, but, you know, it's having that understanding early on. I feel like I don't want him to get trapped in short hair means you're a boy and liking pink means you're a girl.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the earliest version of adults putting children into the binary, gender reveals. Like, let's talk about those.
Strange.
Like, I always find gender reveals really, really odd, personally. I mean, if you are people who enjoy gender reveals, that's all good, unless you're doing something dangerous that like sets the world on fire. Like, please stop with that.
Don't do that.
It's 2021. Like, if you're gonna do a gender reveal, like a cake is sufficient.
I've seen
long
some
as you eat the
crazy
cake.
ones.
But yeah, like it's weird in that, like, from the very offset, and I guess this is what we fight. This is on International Women's Day. We're fighting for this parity between the genders, but I think what we always forget is that there is more than one gender, and we've got to do more to get parity across throughout. And there's so much work to be done. But actually, if you take the two most popular or the most common genders, there is so much disparity even in that, and that starts from such an offset of age of like, before I even came out of the womb, you know, there were parties being done as to like, oh, she'll be the little princess, and then I came out not a princess.
But just how bizarre, like having a party about like just someone's genitals, like it's just weird.
Now that you mention it,
that's all it is. Also, growing up, like, I feel like, so I think I've told you this, guy, like I've told you before, I didn't actually know what my woman parts were until I was a lot older, because my mum had some very special names for them growing up, and she's had an impact on a lot of children. But I think that's also why I have, like, I don't know, like when people would, like I went to college, we had so many trans students, and I don't know, it was just like water off a duck's back for me, because my mum had that kind of life growing up, so none of that fazed me. And I think that's really warped my perception of womanhood and femininity.
And we love that, because now is your chance to talk about it, and it's time for us to talk about how we all have such different perspectives and like different experiences. Like, it's so important. I think this is actually a really good time. Izzy Wizzy, I love that name. What a cool YouTube name. But do you think if you hadn't gone to uni, your views of gender wouldn't have been able to develop due to the lack of education around the topic, i.e. general media, XYZ? And I think, what a phenomenal question. I think ultimately this is the point of this, right? Like, we've set this up because we're talking about, actually, we've gone through uni, we've graduated, and I for one can say I've come out a whole different person, especially in relation to gender. And I want to say, if, you know, I don't want to say uni is what did it for me, but uni definitely made it the most accessible and the easiest to learn about it for me, because otherwise there really isn't anything out there. But you guys, like, tell me about what you think.
I've learned a lot off Instagram. Sorry.
Do you know what? Laura is always beating Aisha today. I love it.
Sorry.
No, go.
The race is on.
Go.
No, it's okay. I'm just going to say I've learned a lot off Instagram and the sort of people I followed with that, but I think I've only found those accounts from people I've met at university. And I think maybe if I'd have stayed in the same place, I don't know, doing the same sort of things, I wouldn't feel as comfortable with that knowledge or have as much of the willpower to learn. Go on, Aisha. Go ahead.
Thank you, Laura. But no, first of all, great question. And I think first and foremost, my answer is no. I definitely don't think I would have learned about all the stuff that I know now if it wasn't due to uni. I think I'll just be in such a closed social circle that would,
right?
Yeah, like a little bubble. And I feel like my views, I feel like I myself would be a completely different person. Like my ideologies, my views, like what I want from life would have been completely different. So first, I'm grateful for coming to uni, and just like the lack of education part of the question that Izzy mentioned, I think that is so important. And Joe roughly touched upon it just before just before this question, when you're talking about you didn't know where the women parts were, or the different names for it, but a lot of people just learn the basics. And I think a lot of it is trying to do self-education by yourself. Like recently, Joanna, Dia, and I, we've been talking about period poverty, but until then, I only knew the very basics of period poverty, like periods in general, sorry, not just period poverty. But like, okay, yeah, I get my periods a month. I didn't even track them. I didn't even know anything about discharge or anything like that. Just like the lack of that wasn't taught in any like educational premises when I was like young and when I needed to know that, and only for me to find out like 22 years later what's happening in my body since I was 11. So it took me 10 years to kind of get to where I am. And I had to do it and take that step all by myself. And I know for a fact that it's not just me, that a lot of like other women are on a similar path to me. But still, I think that lack of education is so disappointing. And I don't think I don't know if it happened to you, but when I learned about like sex ed and like the female anatomy and all sorts, we were divided into groups. So like the girls would be in one class and the boys would be in one class learning about their bits and bobs. Does that make sense? Yep. So and I think that's not fair, because a lot of men in women's life have to deal with periods. So in my opinion, I think it's only fair if they know about it, because the men in my life only know about it because of the women in their life. But it shouldn't be the women's responsibility to teach the men. Does that make sense? It should be something that kind of is embedded in the curriculum. I'm using very much university terms here, but that's just my opinion.
Let's talk pedagogy.
Let's go.
I think that. Oh, sorry.
No, I was saying, yeah, but that's my stance on things.
I think that's such an important take on it. Like, actually, even like because of the way the school education system is set up, it's so binary. Like even how we are taught is so binary, and like if we're being taught in binaries, one of two things happens. What we've seen now is there's inevitably a disparity within the binary. Like if we look at the male and female binary, there is so much that like International Women's Day exists because women have been kind of on the bottom foot, on the bottom leg, at the bottom step. We have a glass ceiling, for goodness sake. Like imagine that, like so many things to deal with. And
break the damn ceiling.
We're gonna break it. But to think that there's so much involved in just being a woman, and like actually we're not even teaching the other gender binary anything about it, and we're having to go through it, also forgetting. But in it, what the other thing we realize is we're also not teaching people outside of the binary. Like, what do you do if you are a trans man, or literally anything like that, where you would not have been taught about period if you through the education system? Like how are we doing this, where not only are we putting the education of the binaries in play and like there's disparity there, but now actually people outside of the binary are being left without an education and without a clue as to what's going on around them or what could happen or the potentials. And I think that's so scary, right? Like we all went to, or the majority of us went to school in the UK. You went to school in Chicago.
Yeah.
God, I got that right. Can you imagine? I would have been so. But like, was it any different, or was it the same?
It was definitely different. I went to a Catholic school, so first of all, talking about sex was a big no-no anyway, if that makes sense. And when it came to like our sex ed classes, or anything like that, it was just a very, very basics. Like it would be pointing at a chart, like this is that, this is that, this is that. That's all you need to know. Go away. If you get a period, use your pads or tampons. That's it. Like that's like the height of the education I got from that class. And a lot of it was just me like doing a lot of internet searches or asking like my friends and families. So it is, I don't know how it is for the UK, but it wasn't the best from where I learned it, if that makes sense.
So long story short, dear world, please fix your education systems. Like, please do ensure that there is parity and ensure that all students are taught the same things and have access to the same things in education. This is where we're getting to now, and we need to make sure, like, it's always weird to think about it because I have a very like as I was saying earlier, like I go by she they pronouns. I don't know strictly what being a woman means to me or what femininity means to me. I have to be really honest, I'm hosting this, but it's something that's really confusing to me. So that's why I wanted to kind of take on this challenge and really learn from it. And like, am I missing something, or have I gotten it? And there's more to it. There's so much. But this talk ultimately is called DMU Women. What does femininity and womanhood mean to us? And there's two different things that we want to go into. So I'm going to pull up Amber's question, if that's okay. Is womanhood a construct in itself, or is it a feeling felt by someone as they go through life identifying as a woman, or both? Lol, I don't know.
I am loving the questions today.
So am I. Like, thank you so much. I think these are really, really brilliant, thought-provoking questions. So thank you to our lovely students and people participating. Please keep sending them in. I'm not going to start with this one. Let's go Aish, go on.
Okay.
Let's throw you on the spot. But talk about you personally. Forget the world, forget that we're alive, but is womanhood the same thing as femininity to you? Is like, what is womanhood like?
Yeah,
I was just going to duplicate
I get
Amber's
you.
question, but she's asked it.
So wow. Okay, so I'm gonna be really real here. That I think growing up, I had kind of not drilled down to me, but introduced to me the ideology of what being a woman is. And first of all, I think it went in layers. So first of all, a woman has to be pretty. She always has to be like, on her game. She needs to look the best. Like if you don't look the best, you're not gonna get someone to marry. And I think the second layer is marriage. And like, oh, you need to, be presentable, you need to be soft spoken, you can't be loud. Like I've always been a loud person. And to be like, oh my God, you're too loud for a girl. And I hated that statement. Like, what do you mean for a girl? Huh?
Well, what?
Like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't know that there was like a metric system for people to measure how loud a girl can be. And then it's just, to me, femininity was always like very, to me, I didn't know at the very start of it, I didn't know the difference between them. Let's start with that. Like, I thought being a woman is being feminine. Or if someone else was being feminine, they'd be referred to, oh my God, they're so girly, or oh my God. I don't want to like use pronouns here, but like they would refer to them as being a woman when they're not a woman. Does that make sense? And it never sat well with me, even when I was younger. And then I kind of learning more about it when I was older. I'm like, okay, now it makes sense why it never sat well with me. But just the first and foremost, the first introduction I had to femininity was through womanhood, if that makes sense. Like, to me, I found it hard to kind of differentiate between them to begin with. And then I think later on, as I grew older, as I just talked to more people, met more people, kind of had the world exposed to me, I was like, whoa, these are two completely different things. And I feel like someone can be feminine, but not a woman. Does that make sense? But then again, what is femininity? Like, if it's caring too much, being feminine is being a really good parent, being feminine, or cleaning and looking after your space, too feminine. Like, what is femininity? Does that make sense?
I feel that makes complete sense, at least to me. I'll say that. Because that's exactly it, and that's maybe the constant crisis I'm going through, like 25/8. Hello. But it's like, Amber's, you've written in here, like, is womanhood a construction in itself, or is it felt by someone as they go? For me, femininity is the construct. Like, how can we define something as blah 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 blah, like Aisha's just said? How can we say that this relates to this and this relates to this? And for me, womanhood, I guess, is the identifying feature of it. Like, I personally don't, maybe I identify as, I somewhat identify as a woman. Like, I somewhat identify with the sex/gender I was assigned at both. I somewhat identify with both. But do I identify with being femme? Not really. But then also, who are we to determine like what is femme and what is not? And I think that is definitely the social construct. And for me, the womanhood is the identifying factor. It's about how I feel internally, and it's not really for anyone else to determine. But yeah, I don't know. Laura, Joe?
It's all a construct.
Yeah.
Hot take. Everything.
Is that you done?
Don't believe in anything, basically.
Yeah, okay, that's a flower statement. Yeah, I think femininity is seen as something so negative. Like I said, it's if someone who is like doesn't identify as a woman is seen as feminine, it's a negative. One of my exes had that just embedded in his head, that if he cried, if he cared, and if he showed any compassion towards someone, he was weak. But the reverse of that is, I care. You guys know that I show probably tons of compassion towards people. Does that make me weak? Because for me, that actually makes me a stronger person. Because if I can show all those emotions and care for someone else, that's a big thing. Like,
No, I agree with you there, Jill. And I think one more point that doesn't sit well with me is how colors are assigned to genders. If that makes sense. Like, what if someone liking pink, are they feminine? Does that make sense? And I hate the fact that like pinks, purples, reds, they're all like womanly color, and then blues, greens, and yellows are like manly. Like, who decided that? I just want to talk to them. Who and why?
The differences in culture is something that I've started to learn a lot about. I think for us, pink means something and blue means something. But when I was a business student, I actually started to learn that, like, hot damn, maybe that's just my education that's taught me that. Because actually in other countries, I love that in China, red has such a significant meaning to them. It's a strong colour. It's a loyal colour.
But it's not gendered, right?
It's not.
Yeah,
it's
not gendered, but it's categorized. Like it's symbolized, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's mind-boggling is all I can say. All I'll say is that, guys, if I ever have the privilege for me of becoming a mum and I do a gender reveal, the colour that's going to be coming out is rainbow.
I was going to say it's going to be rainbow.
And that's what we love to hear. We want to see all these binaries and all these systems and constructs that have been put in place absolutely smashed, exploded, out of here. So it's exactly where I love this conversation going. Thank you guys, and thank you to DMU for like giving us the space to really actively have this conversation, because I think it's really important. You know, we are a university of 27,000 students minimum, and we're not even talking about staff or professional services, stakeholders, external students that are not part of DMU but still come here to study. You know, we have a reach of so many people. So thank you, DMU, for giving us this platform and allowing us to kind of talk about this and like actually really deconstruct everything we know. And I was going to say know and love, but I think love is a really, really strong word here. I want to talk a little bit about, I want to turn the spotlight on us, because obviously I love myself and the spotlight, but it's a little bit about like, I think actually there's a question that fits perfectly in her, again, from Amber. Thank you so much, Amber. You are really on the ball with all these questions. And I've also seen another point Amber has said, there's a distinct difference between the terms femme and femininity. You are absolutely correct. So many apologies. But have you faced a situation in a workplace where you have felt limited / reduced to presenting gender, to your presenting gender, and what would you recommend to someone who is feeling this way? So, plot twist. We are all women that have worked at DMU, and we've all worked as a team at one point or the other, possibly currently, possibly not. But also, Aisha, Laura, and I were really, really privileged and lucky to be part of the first ever all-female executive team, all-women executive team. Woo! And like we always say, what an achievement, how amazing, blah, 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 blah. It's a bit of a shame that it took so long. You know, 2018 we got elected in, and 2019? 2018 to some years we've been elected in, and it's taken so long for us to have a team where we are all of one gender. And you know, it was very cool actually. But actually, one thing we were also talking about is it came with a lot of struggles, and I know, Joe, you weren't part of this team at the time, but you were the council chair. You were in a position of power within the SU, and also you've been working with us and alongside us. So you're going to have experiences as well. But one thing I always remember is, like, actually, for the first time, I was really feeling the spotlight being put on us for being a team of women. And yeah, I always used to think, wow, what an amazing thing, and this is a feature, and this is like a mark in history, and that actually, hey, we've broken that glass ceiling, or we've made it to a place where we are in positions of power. But in reality, I think it definitely came with a lot of stigmas associated with it, and a lot of people thinking, well, how are you going to represent the men's voices, or just something really simple as, like, we'd always be referred to as girlies or spoken down. I don't know. Laura, Aisha, you guys have been through it, and it was absolutely a fantastic time to be an executive and have that power. But also, it's not as if even with that power we came unscathed from it.
No, I think I completely agree with you, Dia. And I think I remember a time when we were in office, all five of us, and I think, I don't know who, but they referred to us as Spice Girls, and I felt really, really down in that moment. I was like, is this, like, no offense, love Spice Girls. I was literally just jamming to their song earlier, but like, is that what we've been kind of not
Reduced
degraded
to,
but reduced? Yeah, like degrade. Like, do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, do you not see me for all my beliefs and my hard work and coming here? Is that what, like, we kind of come across as? And I think it's been of a struggle to me when I first started. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a tiny person, so people don't take me seriously a lot. But being a woman doesn't help either. And then I think when I first started the role, I had to do a lot of work with a lot of our sports clubs and societies, and kind of having them kind of, what's the right word here? In a way for them to, I had to work extra hard, basically.
You had to prove yourself to
I
get
had to
into
prove
that
myself,
sport.
basically, just for them to kind of have that respect towards me. And I'm like, why should I? Because I didn't have to prove myself for the societies or like any other things. But when it comes to like a sport that they already assumed that I didn't know, and then when they found out that, oh, you know about it, I was like, yeah. But it's just like, why must women have to prove themselves in workplace is what really gets to me. And kind of having to go the extra mile and having to do that extra work for it to be to get that same level of respect that a man would have already come in and gotten it. Like, it just doesn't sit well with me.
I feel that so much. And it highlights the Spice Girl comment. It's really funny that you brought that up, because I remember that so vividly. And we've absolutely, like, touch wood, we are a strong team of women. We are all women, but we are a strong team, and that doesn't detract from our womanhood. But we took it in our stride. I am scary Spice. No, just kidding. I am sporty. I would never be scary.
I think one of the things that was most sort of frustrating about that sort of time is that we were all running and won our independent elections, like, on our own, and it almost felt sometimes that, like, our individual progress or success was almost sort of belittled to, oh, it's such a massive thing that we've got 5 women, which of course wonderful. However, for us, it just never felt like it should have been a big thing, and it shouldn't have.
Yeah, I think everyone else apart from us made it a big thing, if that makes sense. I think to us, we literally seen each other as equals, and we would get reminders every now and then. Oh, look, it's the girl band, or the
girlies,
or like, hi girlies, or something like that. And I'm like,
oh my god, have any of you guys seen that TikTok where it's like, it's the gang here with the girls?
No, but you need to
just move on.
Sorry.
You know what? All I do is just constantly embarrass myself on live streams.
Sweetie,
it's a talent. That is a genderless talent. I'll tell you that. But Joe, I'd really love to hear your take as someone looking in, and then someone who's also experienced it.
So first of all, I will say that when you guys were all nominated, and this was, before I kind of had a grasp on what the SU did. I think going back to Laura's, like, you guys were seen as a collective. And actually, there was a significant time where I think I just saw you 5 as a blob. Because that's how you were portrayed at some points. It was, look, there's 5 women. Oh my God, look at what these 5 women are doing. And actually, when I got to know all of you individually, I was like, can we just appreciate the fact that they're more than just a group of women? Each of you do amazing things, both within this job and independently. And that speaks way more than just the fact that you were elected in and just happened to be 5 girls. Whoop-de-doo. And then, hello, Mother.
So, it's like one of those bad clips, isn't it? Or you've been framed or something.
Send it into ITV, 250 quid.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hello.
My mother. I think from a different experience, though. So, yes, I have also faced a situation in a workplace. I haven't faced one in this workplace, thankfully, because everyone has been really supportive this year. However, my job prior to university, when I took a gap year, it was a constant. And it also relates back to the question Izzy asked, if I'd not gone to university, what would my perception of gender been? I worked in a pub in my village that is very male dominant. In fact, I think the demographic here, I can safely say, is cis white men over the age of 50. And my job interview for this pub was the fact that I was a pretty girl, and my boss's exact words were, smile for me. Yeah, you'll pull the punters in. That's what I was there for. We were pretty much an all-female work staff. We were not treated with any respect. A lot happened, and that really changed my perception of gender and femininity. If I'd not come to university, I think my perception of gender definitely would have been, I'm a woman, I'm just meant to be perceived as sex. Because that's how I spent a year and a half of my life.
Which is horrendous. Like, it is so horrendous. And I'm so sorry it's something you went, like, I'm so sorry it's something you had to go through, because it should never be the case, but it is. And there's so much more we have to fight. And we will get there. We will get there. Like, that is my promise. Like, my lifetime goal is we will achieve this parity. Like, we'll get there.
Absolutely.
And it completely reawakened a memory in me. My first ever job was working at Argos, and I was put on the tills immediately, and it went all the girls on the till, all the men in the back at the warehouse. And I was like, whoa. And the minute I noticed it, it like got changed and stuff. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not succumbing to this, blah, 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 blah. But it's always just really, really weird. Like, you can be limited. But I guess we're kind of at the end of our time. So I was going to ask really nicely if there's also the second part to this question of, like, there's so much that we saw, but actually, what would we recommend to someone who is feeling this way? Joe, let's kick it off with you. What would you suggest? Any person, woman or outside of the binary, who is feeling kind of succumb to the pressure beneath it, is like, what would you say?
Talk about it. And own it. It's really hard. You can't do it. I really struggled for a year and a half, especially because I didn't realise what was happening straight away. But go home and remind yourself you are more than what people are saying to you. And if you have to tell yourself that every day, eventually you will start to believe it, because I did. I am now more than just some waitress that men used to stare at for their own enjoyment. I am now a woman in my own damn rights, and people can look at me when I say they can, and they can compliment me when I say that they are allowed to. And
that is beautiful.
That's all I can say. And also, just that's all I've got to say. Just
Aisha, final words from you.
I'd say own it. You're not alone, and it's not you that's the problem. That's what I would say. I think when I first started, I'd blame myself a lot. Oh, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not getting, like, maybe they're not getting me because of, like, the way I am. But it's not a me problem. It's a they problem, and that's what we need to kind of fixate on. That it's not you, it's them.
Thank you. That is like, I think that's really, really important to know. It's not us, and it never will be you. Like, don't ever forget that. Laura.
Mine would be surround yourself, with people who support and empower you every single day, and you'll get there. I'm very lucky to have found my people.
I'm virtually hugging you guys.
But yeah,
And I'm virtually hugging you back. But thank you so much, and that is so important. Like, uni is a magical place. I was gonna be like, if you don't go to, of course you all go to uni. We're on the DMU stream. Like, find your bubble, find your clique, because there will be. And if you're ever in a situation where your clique is not like that, well, come join us. We are cool. I think I'm saying it. We are cool. Yeah.
Yes, you are.
And it is
Yeah,
so
we're cool.
important. But thank you guys so much for doing this with me. It's been really interesting to hear your takes on it, and actually we've had so much in common. Thank you so much to everyone at home who's watching, and thank you so much to the lovely Laura and Jamie in the background who have been helping us put all this together and putting our questions up and everything. So massive thank you to them guys as well. Happy International Women's Day, and let's destroy the patriarchy. What words to end it on. Bye everyone.
Wait. I think before we go, there will be a video played after that we at DMU have done. So
You are so correct. Well done, Aish. Thank you so much. That is correct. It is a bye from us, but it does not mean it's the end of the video. We are going to end it off with one final video that for International Women's Day and the oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm completely
Watch the video.
ignorant. Here's the video.
Yay. Bye guys.
Bye.
My name is Emily Fenton and I work for DMU Sport as a sport project coordinator in participation. I choose to continue to challenge inequality within society, especially in sport, through education and representation. Because together we can create an inclusive environment where everyone is treated equally, no matter how they identify.
Hi, my name is Claire Bainan and I'm the Talent Attraction Manager for Enterprise Rent-A-Car and alumni of DMU. As we head towards International Women's Day, I just wanted to share with you who is my role model. There's been many at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, including our CEO, Chrissy Taylor. I also wanted to share with you a lady called Sheryl Sandberg, and she is the COO of Facebook and founder of leanin.org. And she did a TED Talk probably about 10 years ago, and as I was rising through the ranks at Enterprise, it really did inspire me and really reframed my thought process as I was working my way through up through the organisation. And she has real three main points to make. The first one is to make sure you sit at the table. The second one is to make sure you make your partner a real partner. And the third is don't leave before you leave.